In this lesson, we'll be rendering for a GIF. Okay, so After Effects really isn't the best program to create the GIF in, but we can get it out of After Effects and into Photoshop by creating just a quick little render of this. Now, there's a couple of things we need to take into consideration. Right now we have this at 1280 by 720 as our comp size, and we're running it at 24 frames per second. Now I wanted you to animate everything at 24 frames per second because if you use this font animated in a motion graphics piece, you would want it to be at least 24 frames per second, if not 30. However, whenever we're going to render out a GIF, it's going to play a lot more slowly once you get this into your browser with these current settings. So I want to make a copy of this composition, this main composition, and we're going to change the settings a little bit to work better with that final format being a GIF. Okay, so let's go into our other compositions folder where our main composition lives, and I'll hit Control D to duplicate it. Then I'm going to right click and rename this to GIF parameters. Okay, now let's open up GIF parameters, and it should look exactly the same as main composition at this point. Now what I want to do is scale it down. So I want it to be about half the size of what we're working with now. And we can do that when we go to our final render. So we won't worry about changing that part of it just yet, but I do want to change the frame rate. So I'm just going to go to Composition Settings, and change my frame rate from 24 to 12. Okay, so now when I scrub through, we're still going to 5 seconds, but it's going to look just a little bit differently than it did. Just maybe a little bit choppier, but it's going to work so much better for our GIF. Okay, so let's go ahead and send this over to our Adobe Media Encoder queue. So to do that, we'll go up to Composition, and instead of sending it to Render Queue, we'll send it to Adobe Media Encoder queue. And that'll start to open up for us. And then let's come over here to Custom. It'll open up that dynamic link connection for us. And let's come over here to our video. Okay, so right now we don't want to match the source for the size. So I'm going to uncheck that. And let's turn this down to half of 1280 by 720, which would be 640 by 360. And because that's linked, that's going to stay right there. Frame rate is good. We want that at 12 frames per second. You can play with these a little bit if you want, but I wouldn't recommend turning them up just for the fact that we are trying to keep our file size low for the sake of the GIF. Now I'm going to uncheck the export audio because we don't have any audio, and that all looks good. I'm using the H.264 codec, which is going to create me an MP4, and it'll be really nice for being small enough to just quickly bring into Photoshop for the next part of creating the GIF. So let's go ahead and we'll say okay, and then we'll come up here and hit Start Render Queue. And this is just going to place this in the same place in your project files that we had this project open. So it will automatically place it there in with your other After Effects files. I'm going to move it over to your reference files folder. And then in the next lesson, let's come back and create our GIF in Photoshop.